All right, I believe that we are now recording, and I am here with Nicholeen Peck, whom I'm just right now having the pleasure of meeting for the first time. So I would like to invite you, Nicholeen, to tell us a little bit about yourself and your company to get us started.
Sure. Well, let's see. The most important thing about myself is that I am a mom. I've got 4 children of my own. My oldest is 20. And he's actually been on a mission for our church in Japan. He's going to be coming home in exactly 2 months, and I'm so excited. And then I've got a daughter. She's 18, and she is on her way up to Idaho to go to school, to go to university. And then I've got a 14-year-old daughter, and then I have a 12-year-old son. And somewhere along the line there, a number of years ago, I also had a number of foster children, and some of them are involved in our life. So they will, sometimes come to family things and things like that. And they were my children too. I helped raise them. And when I was doing foster care years ago, and it was like 17 years ago that I started doing foster care now, people started asking me if I would, tell them what was happening at my house. So how come these difficult children, they were level 3 treatment care foster children, how come they were coming to our house, and how come they were changing so drastically and for the good, and so quickly. And so I started saying, well, this is what I'm doing. I teach them this, and I teach them this, and I'm working on this. And in no way was I perfect at it at that time, but I had found some parenting treasures, I will say, some skills development things that I had missed in the past. And I had started looking at parenting in a new way because of parenting these youth that were in my home. So that was the start of things for me. Then people started asking me to come to their parent or their homeschool support groups, their churches, school groups, things like that. And then in 2009, the BBC made a documentary of our family called The World's Strictest Parents. And at that point, they brought 2 troubled teens to our house. Both of them were age 17, a boy and a girl, James and Hannah. And they came from England, and after 2 days of tantrums, they just changed. And after 8 days, they begged not to leave our house anymore, and they wanted to stay if they could. And it was a really touching episode. In fact, it became the most watched episode ever on the BBC. And after that, people started asking for my book and for, how can we learn to do what you're doing? And long before all of that happened, I realized that the things that I was teaching weren't just for troubled youth. They were for today's parents. And today's parents needed to be a little bit better prepared. They needed to have some skills, some communications, problem-solving skills, as well as some proactive skills that they could use to help their family be on the same page a little bit more and have less contention, and to stop all of the power struggles and things like that. And so Teaching Self-Government, the official company, was then born. So I've been teaching for 17 years. In 2008, we actually became an official company. In 2009, my first book came out. And then since then, we've had a series of children's books that have come out that all teach one of the 4 basic skills to children. Just recently, this last weekend, my latest book, Roles, the Key to Family, Business, and Social Success, came out, which is a great addition to any of the Teaching Self-Government supplies. People are just picking it up. They're just sitting down reading it in a night. There are people who are sending me emails saying, we've been reading, I read this thing the whole night. I couldn't sleep and I just read it, and it's so great, and I learned so much. And because the whole idea of roles being part of what people learn in their family. So anyway, that's happening. We've traveled the world. Our homeschool has been to Britain for a month, to Kenya for a month. We've been to China. I mean, just kind of all over. The original book, Parenting a House United, which teaches children how to take responsibility for their own behaviors, teaches parents how to govern themselves as well, so that everybody can be pleased and happy in the family relationships, is now translated into Spanish, and Japanese and Chinese as well as English. So that's kind of where we're at, and we just sort of keep going along. I spend a majority of my days homeschooling, actually, and digging in my garden. As you can see, I'm pretty casual today. I'm just driving. I'm in my car. Well, I mean, I stopped for the call. Figured that would be the most safe. Anyway, but I'm just kind of doing my regular thing today. And that's sort of the story, I guess. And we just try to help families and parents however we can to be free from emotional bondage. We feel like if families are angry, then how can they learn anything? How can the parents have the influence in their children's lives if everyone's trying to manipulate each other? How can they be that place where that spirit of love is supposed to be if they can't even solve basic problems without emotional meltdowns on either the side of the child or the side of the parents? So that's where we're at. And in the end, I feel like we're giving even more than that, because we're setting a lot of things straight in society just by helping families learn how to better problem solve and communicate.
Wow, you and your family sound fascinating. Super. Tell us, how did you wind up getting into homeschooling in the first place?
That's actually a fun story. Yeah. So my children, I was one of those children who was, I guess, kind of accelerated, they would say, in the school program. So I always was in all the accelerated programs and the AP programs and things like that. But still oftentimes really bored. Not that I'm some genius, but I think at a pretty quick pace. And so school was hard. It was kind of hard for me to maintain my happiness there. I always wanted to learn more, and I felt like I never got the opportunity to really be challenged that much, and it was always frustrating for me. Every year I had high hopes, and then after about the first week, I realized I was just going to review everything that I did at the second half of the last school year, and so it was going to be nothing new, and it was always kind of frustrating for me. And so then when I started having children, and I noticed my son at age 3 showing a lot of signs of being the same kind of person, where he was just not, I mean, the normal stuff that would challenge a toddler was not a challenge to him. You know, he could read, and he could do so many things that so many other of his peers couldn't do. I thought, we might get bored. So, I don't know what to do with this, and my daughter did the same thing. Anyway, so when my son was 4 years old, my neighbor said to me, I think that I might homeschool. And I'd known a couple of homeschoolers. In fact, I met them when I moved out to my home in Tooele, Utah, and they intrigued me, what they were doing. Anyway, so she said, I'm going to read this book. And so, I read like this Charlotte Mason book that she found. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I like these ideas of education. And then I went to my first homeschool conference. And then I decided to homeschool, but this neighbor decided not to, which is kind of funny. So it was like she had to decide that, or think about homeschooling, and then so that I would consider it, and then I did it, but then she didn't. And so that was kind of a funny little thing that happened. And then after that, there was kind of like no going back. We just lit the homeschool fire and just started going. We were able to study things I'd never learned in all of my years of high school, when and just schooling and college and everything, when my son was 4 and 5 and 6, and I thought, okay, I've been gypped. How did I never really know who Archimedes was, what he did, and, just the inspiring story of this guy. How did I, never really know, fill in the blank. There were so many people I never knew. I realized that I didn't actually have a firm foundation of history or even really science. And sure, I could write an essay, but I couldn't write anything super compelling. So all of a sudden, I started my own self-government journey and started reading hard things. I started educating myself so that I could be a self-governed professor. And then I could teach my children, hopefully, more than I ever learned, which has proven to be the case, actually. So that's kind of how it happened for me, and it was beautiful. And people who influenced me greatly at the beginning, I already mentioned one, Charlotte Mason. Her ideas, Penny Gardner, great book. That was the first book I ever read. I read Karen Andriola's book as well, the companion, Charlotte Mason Companion. Oh, here, hopefully, my phone is giving me a message. Hopefully I can cool it down a little bit. I don't know, it says it's getting too hot. Anyway, so hopefully it doesn't shut off. Anyway, so there you go. And then the first homeschooling conference I ever went to, Oliver DeMille was there pitch-hitting as a keynote speaker. I heard him, I heard Reed Benson, and these were some of the people that formed me just right at first. And after you get that picture of the ideal of what it could be like at your house, you just never want to go back. And that's what happened for me. And my home became the happiest place, honestly, happier than I ever knew a family could ever be.
That's really cool. I love your high energy and in your storytelling there too. I can see you're really passionate about it. So I'm thinking that maybe the next question might be a little bit more difficult, because I'm asking you to pinpoint one thing that's your favorite thing about homeschooling.
The unity. As a family, you know, all of us are engaged in the same project. When you're homeschooling, there's one project in my mind, and that one project is becoming the kind of family God wants us to be, and that's it. I mean, everything else is just a piece of it, and I love that. I love all of us working together, focusing on the same goal, and of course in all of our own unique ways, but yeah, that's my favorite thing.
Okay, how about tell us something that you wish most homeschoolers knew?
Let's see. Well, I wish that most homeschoolers knew that homeschooling requires an engaged parent. You have to be there, part of it. It seems like there's a new trend in homeschooling where people are like, well, yeah, we're going to homeschool, and I'm going to do this all day, and they're going to do their school all day, and that's what we're going to do. And where that works sometimes, if you really have a routine that's established and everything, it's not super inspiring. The children need to discuss. Discussion is the number one environment for creating a great problem-solving thinker. And if mom isn't there to discuss, or dad's not there to discuss, and to bring up the new, deep ideas, then they'll just go through the motions. And check-off lists are never good enough for me. I think that everyone should understand philosophy. I think that's what education is all about, is understanding your theology and your philosophy better. And if you leave your educational experience not really having firm views in philosophical matters, then you probably haven't gotten the opportunity to think enough. So there you go.
Thank you. That's some good, valuable insight. I like that. Can you give us a little idea of what you're going to be talking to us about at the boot camp?
Yes, I will. So I'm super excited. You know, a lot of people will ask me, they'll say, okay, we're just starting. I'm a little nervous because, you know, my children, they don't even want to do their chores. How are they going to want to do schooling, you know? And I always say, okay, well, let's talk about what lesson number one is then. Okay, lesson number one is self-government. If you can teach them some simple skills, and if you can consistently correct them so that you can create a culture in your home where it's a self-governing culture, then they will go and learn anything. And when you say, it's time to do our math, there's not going to be grumbling. because they'll understand the point of math, and if they've got a problem, they'll come to you. They'll disagree appropriately. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about how to set up this type of an environment in a homeschool. I'm also going to talk about the benefits that self-government has for homeschooling. I also want to take a little bit of time and talk about the difference between being an activist and being a family. So there's like I mentioned, my newest book that just came out is all about roles, and there's so many people who are looking for purpose in the world today. And so I want to take a little bit of time today and talk about how activism is not the answer, but how family is, and how the family can produce an environment where purpose can be found. There's some key components there, and I want to talk about some of that, as well as giving parents, you know, some just really things they can do to make their home culture powerful and more positive.
That sounds awesome. I'm excited to hear your presentation. And lastly, can you tell us a little bit about your offer for us?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. In fact, anyone that would like to go to the Teaching Self-Government webpage, so it's just like it says, teachingselfgovernment.com, and if you go there and you go to the shop page, well, when you're there, you may want to stop and watch the BBC show, which is on the video tab. And if you go to the shop page, anything in that shop page is going to be 20% off with the coupon code TSG Deals. So go to the shop page. Anything that looks like it'd be interesting for you, which I highly recommend. Some of the books there, especially some of those children's books. A lot of parents will read their little children one of those books every day for lunch, just part of lunchtime or story time, just to review some of the skills that they need. They're super useful. There's a lot of videos there as well, so take a look around. But anything you get would be 20% off with the coupon code TSG Deals. The one thing that you need to remember, though, is that as you go through the process of checking out, the code will not work or be applied to your order until you've actually kind of signed in. So you have to put in your email and create, the account. That's the first part of the checkout process. So just make sure that you recognize that's part of it.
Okay, awesome. We will get that information all passed along, and we really appreciate being able to visit with you today. And for all who listen to this recording, remember that we still have the buy one, get one free offer going on tickets for the boot camp. And also we still have scholarships available. If you wanted to apply for those, then go to our event page and apply there. So a big thank you, Nicholeen. We're looking forward to seeing you this weekend. I guess we'll sign off. Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.